Thank you for joining us. The Columbian is happy to welcome candidates for 17th District Representative Position 2. Welcome to Richard Colwell and Paul Harris, and we are still hoping that Martin Hash will join us, so we'll play that by ear. I'm Greg Jane, the editorial page editor. You met Lou Brancasio, editor of the paper, and you met Lauren Day, reporter. We'll be sitting in. She won't be asking questions in this forum, but might want to speak with you afterwards. And finally, final bit of housekeeping, we are videotaping this. We will post it on our website, and we post all of our editorial board meetings unedited for the benefit of our readers. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll begin with introductions. Take 1 to 2 minutes, give us a little bit of background about yourself, and tell us why you are running for this position. We'll start with Richard.
Hey, my name is Richard Colwell. I'm a regular guy. I'm a machinist, 50 to 60 hours a week, last 6 months. I'm a homeschool dad, so we homeschool our son at home. And I'm just sick and tired of politicians that say one thing and do the complete opposite once we get them into office. I don't know that, I know that I'm not the only one that feels that way. I know there's so many people that just blow off with politicians. In fact, I got, this was left on my doorstep the other day by the Harris campaign, and it's just a lot of.
Are you going to vote for him?
No, I'm not going to vote for him.
Okay.
But it's just a lot of just general pabulum that every candidate says in every election, and I don't know anybody anymore that believes this stuff. For example, we got talking about the budget. Paul talks about the budget. If it's going to run out, he doesn't say what he's going to do. He just says we have to do something to make sure that we have enough money. Is he going to raise taxes, or is he going to cut spending? It'd be good to know whether or not what his position is, rather than just saying we have a problem. Address the issue and say what he's going to do about it. So. Those are the things that maybe decide that I need to run, that I need to get into this to make sure that we have a conservative representative in the House.
Great, thank you. And Paul?
Paul Harris. Been in the 17th District for, I was trying to think about that. Moved here in 1979, and I've been in the 17th the entire time. Raised my 5 children here. Small business owner, continue to run a small business. Have 8 grandchildren, 2 of which are in the area now. I think the reason I'm running is I want to make sure that we continue to have an area that will be vibrant for jobs, that our kids will have a great education, those that want to go to public school, that we can meet their needs. And I guess to answer some of Richard's questions already, very difficult. I feel like we can do most of this within the current revenues that we have without raising taxes. And so one thing I love about being a state legislator is we have to balance the budget every year. We've done that. We did that last year without raising taxes, and I believe we can do it again. So, yeah, that's why I'm running.
Thank you. And in fact, let's play off that. We'll start with a budget question about McCleary and school funding. So, Paul, you say that we can adequately fund public schools without raising taxes.
I believe we can. I think one of the things that will be different this year in the House, if I am reelected, I will be the ranking member of the House on education. I'll be stepping down as the minority whip, and I'll become the lead for education in the House on the Republican side. I think one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves right now is, what is the size of the box that we need to fill? There's chatter between 2.5 and 3.5 billion. I believe that number is right around 2.8. There's a study out right now to determine what the size of that box is. I think once we determine that, I think it will be right around 2.8 billion. We continue to have increases in revenue. I think we will continue to see that. We'll have between 8 and 10% increase in revenue. I believe that we will do the levy swap, which actually for Clark County will actually lower our taxes on property taxes. If you're in King County, you might not be happy because I think you're going to pay a little more proportionate. We'll get rid of some of our local levies that have gone to education. If you look at the McCleary decision, what it really said is we have inequities throughout the state on basic education. So defining basic education and where we come up with those dollars, I believe we can do it within the revenue stream that we have.
Now you mentioned the study going on to figure out just how much money is needed. Why wasn't that done 4 years ago when McCleary was handed down?
I believe that we all thought we were on the same page for a while, but when you have 98 House members, 49 senators, and you got a couple other people sprinkled in the Supreme Court and a governor, and actually Randy Dorn, superintendent, who all of a sudden came out we thought we had the box defined. Randy Dorn came out and says, well, I think we're actually $8 billion, or it was just a figure that was completely out of the realm of what the rest of us were thinking. We decided at that point we needed to really define the box and find out where we're at. All along, we have said that we would fully fund education in 2018, and we will get there. I believe we'll do it in 2017. So.
Richard, what do we need to do to fund education?
You know, the problem isn't the funding. The problem is that the drivers aren't the students and the drivers aren't the parents. I mean, we all have cell phones here. I see you got Apple, I have Samsung. Nobody has a government-made cell phone, for example. Why is the government running the school system? We need to fundamentally alter the way that that's done so that the persons who are in charge of it are the people who are actually wanting that service, that product. And that's the students and that's the parents. They need to be the ones driving the decision of where their children are educated, how they're educated, what kind of subjects they're learning. Putting it in the hands of these government officials is not the answer. Obviously, we have these problems. They come up year after year.
So you think all education in the state should be privatized?
It should be attached to each student, just like they've done recently in Nevada. They attach it to the student, and then the parents and the students can decide where they're going to spend that money. Are they going to spend it? They can go to public schools if they want to use that. They can go to private school. They can homeschool. They can charter school. Any option is open to them. So by doing that, the actual demand, a type of voucher system, because the money is attached to the student and the family. So they're going to be the ones driving the market, which works for everything else in the world. So I don't see why it can't work and shouldn't work for education.
So you think the legislature should stop worrying about school funding and meeting the McCleary mandate and pursue this system?
They both need to be done at the same time.
So in paying for public schools, which we still need to do to some extent.
At this point, yeah.
Where should the money come from?
The money's just, like Paul said, you've got to put that stuff first. So you say, okay, we got this much money coming in. This is what we're going to fund first. What do we have left for the next thing? What do we have left for the next thing? I have to live that way. So we've got mortgage. We pay that first. We got grocery bills, electric bills. We pay those next. Whatever's left at the end of the month is great. If we can go to the movies, we can go out to eat, great. If not, hey, that's all right. We've paid the important things first.
And Paul, do you favor the fund education first?
Well, I find it, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm glad we agree. I actually, last session was one that stood up and says that we actually need to fund education first, that we need a separate budget for education. Education represents 47.3% of all the revenue in the state. 47.3 goes to education. I firmly believe we need to have a standalone budget, that we need to fund education first, and we need to basically pay for the other stuff afterwards. And we have the money to do that, and I believe we need to do that. One thing that Richard said I think is important is we actually right now do have a form of government that he described, and it's the local school board. Having served on the school board for 11 years, I understand that parents are involved. Those school board members are elected by their local people. They are the ones that just literally determine how the dollars are spent throughout their area, which is actually part of the problem right now. We have areas that can pass bonds and levies and other areas that can't. And so there has been created a disparity throughout the state of what basic education is. And I think what McCleary literally says is, hey, the kid in Bellevue should get the same education as the kid in Battleground for basic education. That isn't happening right now. And so I think that's really important that we do that. So, yeah, absolutely. Fund education first.
The problem with the local school board is it's still a government-run system. You have an entire 49%, for example, minority that's going to lose out if they don't want what the local school board majority decides on. So what happens when you need education tailored to a specific child in a specific situation, like you said? So if you've got a situation where a child in Bellevue doesn't get the same education in Battleground, well, there's a reason for that. Maybe the child in Bellevue has an educational need that doesn't meet the same requirements as the person down here. It's got to be tailored to the individual student and the parents. They need to be the ones driving that decision, and the school board can't do that because it's, again, a majority decision on those things. It's not tailored to the specific individual person.
Do either of you think that the way schools are run, public school system is run, do either of you think that it's bloated? I mean, that's a big percentage.
I think that the drivers right now are not the students, and the drivers, they're unions. The unions are the biggest driver of the education system right now. And I don't have a problem with people unionizing, but I have a problem with the fact that they've usurped a lot of power into their system, and they've left the children behind.
Well, I mean, does that say
That's
that
bloated.
you feel, that the system is bloated? I mean,
Yeah,
we're spending a lot of money on education, and I think that there have been studies that have suggested that other countries that spend
Oh, absolutely.
significantly less than we do, their kids are getting a better education than
It
our
blows
kids.
my mind that that's the case. I mean, we should be able to do it here. We've got the resources to do it. We've got the manpower to do it. We've got the brain power to do it. But why doesn't it happen
Do
here?
you think it's bloated here, and what do we do about that?
I think change is always difficult. So I would is part of the system bloated? Absolutely. But I think exactly what Richard's talking about. When you start looking at individual needs of every student, and we have some kids that have high needs, we integrated all kids into the system now. So it's not like you get to pick and choose which kids you take. You take them all, no matter what they have, what disabilities they have, whatever. So I think it's really easy to say, hey, I'm just going to take the dollars for my kid, who might be fairly smart or maybe even average, and I'm going to take care of him. But what about the kid that's not average? What about the kid who has absolute horrific learning disabilities, who might not ever completely integrate into the system? How are we going to take care of that? And I think that's part of the socialized cost. I think it's really easy to say, hey, well, so if you're going to give every kid $8,000 or $10,000, what about the kid now? What about that kid, that family where the kid can't fit into a normal classroom, who needs $20,000 or $30,000? I think that's a huge issue. And I think it's just really easy to say, here, I'm going to give them a voucher. Hopefully you can figure it out for yourself. I don't know. First off, I don't think that's what the voters want. I really don't. I think the voters want equal opportunity for all kids, no matter who they are, no matter where they came from, no matter what their circumstances are. And that flows into the $15 minimum wage and all these other issues. Is if we can get these kids, our society, educated, then I really believe some of the other issues will be resolved. But I don't think you can just hand a kid $8,000 and say, hey, my job's done now, because not every kid fits into the $8,000. Trust me. I wish it did, but it doesn't work that way. Do I think our superintendents, when I saw the local salary of our superintendent at $67,000, I think there's some bloating, and I think there's at some point where you got to look at it and say, hey, we can do better, and we can watch our dollars better.
The problem, though, if you want a basic education for everybody, is that we're using an antiquated 19th century system. It's based on the idea of having an assembly line to put kids in one end and have factory workers at the other end. That's basically what the system's built on right now. And we want to continue to fund that and continue to do that. We're going to continue ending up with the same problems we have now. So, yeah, there's going to be a few inequities where we've got persons that need an exorbitant amount of money, but the vast majority of students will do better. The vast majority of students are going to succeed in a system that tailors to their specific needs. So,
wait. But I would completely disagree with that.
Okay.
I think our education is not sending out factory workers, and that's part of the problem. I think there are a lot of kids that are interested in going into work in the factories, but we're not educating kids to do the exact job that you do. I think we're plugging kids now into every kid is in the education's mind is going to college, and I think that's completely contrary. There are jobs out there right now for kids who want to be factory workers, who want to be a welder, who want to do other things. And I think the idea that we have a factory system that we're just sending all the kids to the factories is exactly wrong. We need kids that we can isolate that want to do certain things other than going to college. And boy, we need to excel that, because we have huge needs out there right now that we are short on.
Well, one of the points that you made, Paul, which is accurate, is that the system that we have today has integrated the kids into the system.
Absolutely.
How does that play with a view, and I'll ask both of you your views, for example, with the School for the Blind here locally? We have integrated children with special needs into the general system, and yet we still have a School for the Blind, for example. Do you think that those are necessary today?
I think there are certain needs that, I believe those schools are. And in fact, I believe we may have over-integrated it sometimes. I think if you go into the classrooms and you visit, I wonder sometimes if we haven't actually over-integrated, where we have kids that might not actually belong in the classroom yet, in that classroom setting, that can tend to be somewhat disruptive, and that can tend to maybe take a little bit too much of the teacher's time away from maybe the centralists, if you want that, in the classroom. So I absolutely do think we need the School for the Blind, the School for the Deaf. And I would question our model at times as to how well if we've over-integrated.
Doesn't that sound a little bit like segregation?
I don't want to segregate, but on the same, and I don't. I want to make sure that those kids. I have a grandchild that's
But
autistic.
they're going to end up in a society that's not a society of all blind folks, right?
Absolutely, you're correct.
So you don't
But-
think that? So you think that there's a benefit to segregate?
I think there's a benefit for those specific kids there that it actually does help them to integrate later into life. If they can't communicate, if they can't, having attended their graduation, having been down to the school for the blind and see what they do, I believe they are preparing them to integrate.
All right.
I really do.
What's
Let
your
the
vote?
parents and the students decide where they want to go to school. It's simple. Don't force integration. Let them decide. It's a personal choice. I don't see what's so hard about that.
So if I'm reading that correctly, you're saying if all blind kids want to go to a particular school, they should?
That opportunity should be open to them. Or if they want to go to a blind school, that opportunity.
And if all Hispanic students or black students want to go to an all Hispanic or black school, they should?
I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's kind of
No,
silly
I'm
to
not,
make the
yeah, no,
question.
I'm not asking you.
But
This is
that's what you're making a silly question.
No.
They're not going to choose to go to an all black school or an all Hispanic school. They're going to choose to go to whatever education needs.
But
are
they
going to
should have that option. They should have that
Who's
option.
going to base the school on race?
Well,
You're being ridiculous, Luke. Come on.
no, that's not a ridiculous question.
You think that people are going to start schools here in Clark County based on race?
No, I don't.
Then why are you asking that kind of question? It
Because
seems
I'm
silly.
asking you if you think that you should do that should be an option.
It's not going to happen. It's a ridiculous question.
Okay, but you do think it should be an option.
I think that the option should be for individuals to choose the education system that benefits them best.
Right. Okay.
And I think it's silly to think that people are going to base that on race.
Well, they may base it on a disability.
They may base it on disability because it meets a need to fulfill, not race.
Okay.
Right, let's move on to minimum wage. It's been a big topic in this state. And Paul, you've supported legislation that would prevent municipalities from establishing their own minimum wage standards. Is that accurate? Did I state that?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Okay. Why? What's the thinking behind that?
I think it should be market driven. I really do. I think it should be one.
So there should be no minimum wage.
I think we have a minimum wage, and in our state, it's well. At one time, it was the second highest or the highest in the United States. I find it odd. Our state has a tendency to do that at times, where we're number one and we get focused, and then all of a sudden we drop to number two, and that becomes the number one issue. The idea that we need a $15 minimum wage, I think, is honestly absurd. I think even the paper would. I was a newspaper boy when I was a little kid. I would have loved to make $15 an hour delivering newspapers, man. That would have been awesome. So the idea, I think there are jobs that qualify to be $15, but I think to say arbitrarily across the board that everyone's going to get paid $15 an hour is honestly takes away the free market. I think the market will tend to pay what the job entails, and I think if we raise it, I think Seattle's a great point. It's the only city in Washington State where we have fewer restaurants than we did 2 years ago. So you need to ask yourself, why are restaurants pulling out of Seattle? Or why are they not experiencing the growth? And it's because, and if you talk to the restaurant guys, I can tell you, they'll tell you why. It's because of the $15 an hour minimum wage.
So you think that it should be within the state government's purview to tell Vancouver that you cannot also adopt a $15 minimum wage?
No, if you're interpreting that way, then I was wrong. If Vancouver wants to decide they want a $15 an hour minimum wage, I guess let them do it, because what will happen is all the restaurants and all those type of jobs will end up in some other city. And if the city up in Seattle, or if they want to do that, God bless them, because the people will end up down here. Their jobs will end up down here. We need to be very careful with this. I think the idea that every job is $15 is honestly wrong.
Then where should the minimum wage be set? Do you like it where it is now?
I'm fine where it's at now. Yeah, but I think the market should bear that too. I really do. So I in my campaign, I hired 2 kids. He got one of my flyers, but I was out, actually helped walk that precinct that day. I have 2 kids that go out every day, 4 hours a day, I pay them $10 an hour plus $5 for every sign that they place in a house. I went lower, I didn't get the quality of kids. I go higher, I get the quality of person I want. I think that's the way the market works. And we're out knocking doors every day, and that's, for me, $10 an hour works.
Richard, minimum wage?
Here's the question I have about minimum wage. The concern I have is that you're telling a business owner that if he doesn't do what the government decides he's going to do, you're going to send somebody to punish him? Are you going to put him out of business? At some point in that line of thinking, you're going to have to use force against somebody who was engaging in a voluntary exchange. And if somebody didn't want to work for $10 an hour, that's their choice. Nobody's forcing them. And nobody's forcing that person at this point to hire somebody for $15 an hour. But as soon as you institute a $15 an hour minimum wage, or any kind of minimum wage, you're telling somebody that if you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to bring force against you if you don't. And I disagree with that. I disagree with the use of force as a way to organize society.
And so philosophically, you don't think there should be any minimum wage?
I think philosophically that it's
employers and employees.
It's a progressive idea, and we can see the world over that as progressive ideas expand, the gap between the rich and the poor expand. Progressivism isn't the answer. Progressivism is the disease. So when they come up with these things, it just disenfranchises people who can't work. For example, in the SeaTac area, they've got that $15 an hour minimum wage. People are out of jobs now because of it.
So there shouldn't be any minimum.
There shouldn't be any government forcing anybody to do something.
And so
like
if you
that.
went to Olympia, would you introduce legislation abolishing the minimum wage?
I wouldn't touch it as it is right now because it's a contentious issue, but I can tell you that making it so it's harder for a guy to be in business and forcing him to pay somebody a wage that doesn't make sense economically and would put him out of business and cause him to put people out of work, I wouldn't be in favor of that.
But essentially, let the market be
The free market's
final judge.
like I said, we all have cell phones here. They're not run by the government. They're not made by the government. We wouldn't want government running our farms or running our supermarkets. It'd be a disaster. It'd be like Venezuela. Let's let the free market decide these things. It usually works out. There are going to be problems. There always are. But it's much better than having it centralized in the hands of a few, and it's a total disaster in those situations.
Cell phones are regulated, though. Just
Everything is regulated.
Absolutely.
Everything's
Right.
regulated.
Everything's
We wouldn't want the
regulated.
government running them, would we?
Right. Obviously, we have two Republicans here, and there will be differences within the party. But I'm curious, as we try to potentially distinguish you two, your views on Councilor David Madore. What's your view on Councilor David Madore? Do you think he's been good for the county, and do you think he's been good for the Republican Party?
All right. Here's what I like about David Madore. He's been.
You wrote it down?
Yeah.
All right.
He's been instrumental in stopping the CRC project, which would have brought crime rail into Vancouver. It was a bridge that was too low to meet Coast Guard requirements. Wouldn't have had enough traffic lanes to get actual traffic back and forth. You know, there'd be a minimum number of people who would have actually used light rail. I've been to Portland a lot of times. How often do I stand there watching the MAX trains just out of curiosity to see how many people are riding them? And they're often, quite often, empty. So that's just waste of money that we would have been spending money on. So he was instrumental in the fee waiver, which put Clark County as one of the fastest growing counties again in the state economically. He's been instrumental in starting the grid, which was something that's been talked about for a long time. So all of the information the county engages in is now online. You can see it online. He put the Clark County checkbook online. He made Clark County parks free because we're already paying for them. So I like what David Madore's done. People say he's divisive. I don't think he's divisive. I think that the leftists and the liberals in this county think he's divisive, and they want to make it look that way. But he's done everything that the conservatives who put him into office have asked him to do, which is minimize the scope of government.
Do you agree that there has been a split in the Republican Party in part because of Councilor Madore?
I think that split would have been there anyway. You have the establishment Republicans who are doing everything they can to keep their power or help out liberals, and the other conservatives who are sick and tired of that happening, and so we're rising up to do something about it. Because we feel like we've been stabbed in the back every time we help a candidate who says they're Republican or says they're conservative, and then they turn around and do the complete opposite of what they intimated they were going to do when we put them there.
Okay, thanks. Your view, do you think Councilor Madore has been good for the county, and what do you think of him generally?
So I think Councilor Madore has done some good things. I think what's interesting is just listening to Richard. I think I'm assuming that he thinks I'm one of these established Republicans who's been elected now and hasn't done what he said he's going to do, which I would completely disagree with. So I think, and what was interesting, when I looked at my list of Republicans when I walked his precinct, paid a lot of money for that list. And Mr. Colwell didn't come up as a Republican on my district. And so I thought that was interesting. So, oh, my glasses.
I remember those from.
Yeah, so do I.
So do I. So do I.
How did you get his glasses?
Dollar store.
That's where I got mine.
Oh, okay.
Good conservative Republican. So I think it's interesting. I am a Republican, not a libertarian. I'm a Republican, and I think David Medore has done some good things. I really do. Do I think he's divisive now? I do. I think when you start to govern, and the 17th district is a great district to look at. We just did some focus groups because we have an open seat. My seatmate, and the Senate seat's open. We spend a lot of money in the 17th district trying to determine what the voters want. It's a very, very moderate district, very moderate. And the title of what we're doing is representatives. My job is to represent the district, not just quote Republicans, but everybody. And I think it's really important that we look at the district, and you represent the district that way. Getting back to your question regarding David Medore, I think David has not. I think the election will tell. Let's see how he does in the election, because the election will tell whether or not he is been an effective. If he gets reelected, then the people are happy with him. I think we come up for election every 2 years. They come up for every 4 years, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but what's your opinion? You think he's going to get reelected?
I don't.
Right.
No, I just want to address something here.
Well, real quick,
Let's get
though.
to this. No, let's get to this because
What-
Sam Kim came to the caucus and the Clark County Republican Party convention,
Mm-hmm.
both saying each time that he was a Republican and he was recruited by Paul Harris to
Okay.
run as Republican and to keep the district Republican, and then he files as an independent Democrat. What's going on there? I mean,
Well, first-
you can't tell me that you're Republican and then you recruit somebody who's going to run as an independent Democrat.
Can
That
I-
doesn't make sense.
I would love to address that.
Okay, well,
Let's
have at it.
Let's do it. I didn't recruit Sam Kim.
He says it right on video.
No, Sam Kim called me and asked if he should run. I said, Sam, if you feel like running, have at it. I didn't call Sam Kim and recruit him.
That
Sam,
he said on video that you recruited
Well,
him.
that's fine. You can say whatever you want to say. My goodness, come on. You'll find if you ever get
Well,
elected,
you
you'll find
were
that
at
out.
the county convention and you didn't get up on the podium and say, "Hey, Sam, I didn't recruit you. You recruited. You asked me. You were there."
I was, but I didn't have the opportunity after he spoke. So I mean, what?
I want to back up just for a second here. One thing you said about Councilor Medore, and you mentioned the fee waiver, and you, along with Medore, have give that credit for opening the floodgates of jobs.
Wow.
But there's been much evidence. Anybody who has studied it has suggested that the fee waiver has not been the cause of those jobs. How do you answer that?
Do you think it's a good idea to charge people all these fees just so they can run businesses or
I
develop
think
their
it's a
property?
good idea to have roads and
I think it's a good idea to have those
infrastructure
roads
and
too. But have we
support.
had a lack of roads lately? Have there been a problem?
Yeah.
We got stuff going on down here. I just drove it first time today.
And that's because of Medore's fee waiver?
I'm saying his fee waiver hasn't impacted the fact that there's no road there. There is a road there.
But you
City
agree
of
that somebody
Vancouver.
has to pay for the road.
I
right?
agree somebody has to pay
And
for the road.
who is
We're
that
paying
some-
for them with our gas taxes, aren't we?
Okay, but so you agree that the government has to get involved in charging somebody money
somebody
to
has
build
to
the
pay
road.
for the road. I'm a little
And you're
upset.
just saying that
I'm
the
upset that we're putting all this power in the hands of a few people to decide where the road should be or shouldn't be. It should be a little bit different system. But yeah, right now the current paradigm is that the government is in charge of these things. The fee waiver hasn't affected the fact that there's still
Wait,
roads
so
being built.
Roads should be private?
Roads are not being built right now, are they? I've got road construction out by my house. There's road construction here. We
right,
haven't had a
nobody.
problem with
Yeah, I
roads.
don't think that that's an issue. But you're saying that a business that might create additional traffic to put on those roads should not be charged for that increased traffic.
Why would a business want to build a business?
Have you ever noticed that you answer questions with questions?
Yes,
a lot?
I do.
Okay, good. Because you don't answer questions.
So let me
you get.
I'm
that,
answering
right?
your question.
You
A
get
business
that, right?
isn't going to want to build a business and then not have access for people to get to that business. They're going to have an incentive to increase that.
Right, but what do you think
access.
about answering a question with an answer? What do you think about that?
Is there a
think-
problem with a rhetorical question that makes people think?
But you're not answering a question. You're answering a question with
I've
another
answered your question. A
This
business.
is, by the way, this is classic political stuff.
Yeah, it
answering a question with a question. For a guy that thinks he's an outsider, you think you might want to try to answer a question. But hey, maybe that's just
If
me.
you don't think they're answers, that's fine.
Okay. Because they're not, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, we both
So-
would agree with that.
Well, and it seems that I get the impression you're both generally free market Republicans. So, what do you think about corporate tax breaks, specifically the Boeing tax break?
I understand why they did it, to keep Boeing in the state, because they've got factories in other parts of the country. And I think that everybody in the state should have gotten that tax break. Quite frankly, the Washington State Constitution specifically, and they violated the Constitution when they did this, but the Constitution specifically says that there shouldn't be special laws for special groups of people, and that one definitely falls within that category. So I understand why they did it, because they wanted to keep them in the state and keep those jobs, but it was wrong of them to have done it.
Paul?
No, I believe we lived within the law, or we would have been slapped with a lawsuit. So I think we lived within the law. If I had to do it over again, the only thing I would have done differently was probably tie jobs to that. So if I was to make a mistake, I would own up to that and say, we probably should have tied jobs into the tax break.
Mean jobs other than the 7X.
Correct. Yeah, and probably that was a mistake on our behalf. But I think that the $8.3 billion that we offered them, I think was a good investment. It's going to return about $21 billion to us. It placed the wing here. If you've been up there to take the tour to see the amount of investment that they've made, it was good. Boeing probably represents 10 to 12% of the jobs in our state somewhere are related. I think there's other people like South Carolina and other places that would love to have that. We need to stay competitive. And so if I had to do it over, I would do it, but I would have probably written the law a little better. And we do that all the time in Olympia, to be honest with you. I think sometimes we're always fixing stuff. We're always fixing laws that we've created. And so that would have been another one. If I had another opportunity to take another bite at, I'd try fixing it better. But I think the idea now that I can go back to Boeing and renege on that, or I think that would be a complete lack of integrity on our behalf. And I don't think we can do that. I think that's part of being a legislator, or part of governing, is we need to be fair. And I think we've made a decision. We need to live within that decision.
In order to be fair, I think it would have been good for every business in the state to have gotten those kind of tax breaks, something similar.
But it's not realistic. If you're up there,
Well, do you
as a
understand why they would have
representative,
left if they would have had to pay those taxes? Because taxes are an impediment to business.
Is that realistic to give that break to every business in the state?
I think that is how it should have done. Why should they get special treatment?
So you would propose that?
I propose that if we want to do something for Boeing, that we do the same thing for every other business in the state. If we want to apply the law fairly, it has to be applied fairly.
So are there any corporate tax breaks that you would want to revisit? Would you look at those? Would you expand
I would only
them?
want to revisit them in the sense of expanding them out to every other business in the state. Everybody that's in business has the right to the same tax breaks that any one business would be getting. It doesn't seem fair that this business over here should have to pay more than this business over here. Let's make it even.
I believe there's scale of economics, and that weighs into this, and I think that was one of the issues that we looked at. Larger paint, I go back in my old days of paint manufacturing, and the idea that I can purchase at the same rate that Sherwin-Williams or somebody else, it might not be fair, but it's the way it is. Boeing is a huge company. They pay a lot of taxes, and we offered them a break. That's what we did. It's done in business all the time. If I buy certain raw materials and I can buy them in greater scale, it might not be fair, but I get a better price.
Government
That's
shouldn't
all
be
that's-
picking
that's all that
winners
happened
and
here.
losers. Shouldn't be picking winners and losers.
Even for a company that employs 80,000 people in the state.
I'm glad they got those tax breaks. I understand why the state did it. I think it should be applied to all businesses. That's all I'm saying. It's pretty simple.
As a business owner,
Yeah, but there's a significant loss of tax revenue under your proposal, right? If those tax breaks are given to everybody.
If you want to be fair and equitable,
No, I
that's
get
probably
that.
going to happen.
I-
What is more important, that businesses have an opportunity to be in business, to employ people, and to engage in trade, or is revenue more important? The two actually kind of compete. Unless you look at the Laffer curve, and the Laffer curve shows that when you have low income levels, you have higher revenue. So
Yeah, I get that, but again, now this gets applied to every business. This is just a factual question. There was a loss of revenue in that program, right?
Yeah, there's lots of revenue when they did that. Yeah.
And then do we just live without that loss of revenue, or do we make that up somewhere else?
I think that Boeing and every other company has a right to be in business and to be minimized the amount of tax they have to pay.
You didn't answer the question, right?
Which is what?
The question was, there is a lack, we will have a loss of revenue under that program.
The government
And
will have a loss of revenue.
Right, and do we make that up somewhere, or do
Live with it.
we live without that revenue?
I'd
Okay.
love to make more money, but this is what I can make right
Okay.
now. This is my budget. I live within it.
Okay.
So
So
the
we just
same
live
should apply to the government.
without all of that tax revenue.
And I'm curious about some semantics here. Lou said we would have a loss of revenue, and you said the government would
The government have
have
a
a
loss of revenue.
So you think the government is separate from the people?
It certainly acts that way, doesn't it? I think it is separate from the people.
No,
It's
okay,
not.
you think it
I
is.
think it is separate from people anymore. That's one of the reasons why I'm running. Somebody's got to do something to try and change the direction of that train. I don't feel it represents us anymore, and I know everybody I talk to feels the same way. When I order my campaign materials, I talk to those guys, and they feel the same way. People I work with feel the same way. People I've gone to school with for years feel the same way. They
Paul,
don't-
is government that detached from the people?
Absolutely not. I don't believe so. I really don't. As I'm knocking doors, I don't believe they're that detached. We are elected in. I believe. So this is the difference between the Clark County Republican Party, and I guess the Republican Party, because I firmly believe that we are not detached. I believe that I'm up for election every 2 years. Last election cycle, I knocked on over 20,000 doors. We will knock on doors again. We will listen to the people, and I don't believe that the people literally want to shut government down. I don't believe that's what they want. I think the hardest thing, what I have learned as a legislator, is that I at times have to compromise if I want to get something done. And I think there's people that think compromise is bad, but I don't think compromise is bad. I believe that's what the people want. The people do not want to just say, well, yeah, we're just going to live, the government's just going to live with less completely. And I believe that figure would be devastation. One of the vetting questions that the Clark County Republican Party sent out that I didn't fill out, that I'm sure that Richard probably filled out, was, they want to go to the gold standard. So I said, geez, Clark County Republican Party, if you want me to go to the gold standard, I asked the question. It says, how do we get there? How do I get to the gold standard without causing economic devastation throughout the United States? Well, Paul, don't ask that question. Just fill out the form. And I said, but that to me is the question. And why gold? Why did you just pick gold? Why not oil? Why not a variety of? Why not silver? Why not a variety of things? But why just gold? What makes gold any more special than some other raw material? Or if I was in the paint industry, the gold was titanium. Why not titanium? I just thought it was an odd question. But as I discussed with him more, the real question was, because we really don't have an answer for it, but it just sounds good. I don't want to have devastation. So I think it's really important that as we say these things, how do we get there? How do we resolve some of these issues? I don't think you can just say, well, we're just going to live with 25% less in government. Gee, it sounds great, but what about all those people? What about the people who part of our Constitution is that we take care of those who can't take care of, and there are those people. I think we need to look at that. Are we going to have adequate roads? Are we going to have adequate health? All those things. It's just easy to say no, but that's not always the answer.
Do you have any disagreement with the state Republican Party platform?
I don't.
So there is a gold standard in the state Republican Party platform as well.
Okay.
And the reason that we want a gold standard is because the Constitution, if you want to be a constitutional Republican, the Constitution specifically lays out that gold and silver shall be the only forms of money that states make as money, to use as money. And that's why we're trying to get back this.
Our county didn't say silver; they just said gold.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'm just stating what the Constitution says.
so
When we had a gold standard, inflation was lower. When we took off the gold standard, inflation was
What do you
higher.
do for a living, Richard?
I'm a machinist.
In Portland or
Here in Vancouver.
Here.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you didn't have a lot of information available on the website or
A lot of information for.
stuff like what you did for. Where'd you go to school?
I went to Hudson Bay High School, Clark College.
Okay. Good.
Mount Hood Community College.
Do you have I'm curious, do you have a personal friendship with Councilor Medora?
I've met him twice, shaken his hand twice.
Oh, okay, that's it.
That's as far as
Okay.
I've gotten with him.
Okay, good. Good. Thank you.
Really quick, let's talk about the I-5 bridge transportation. How should we approach it, Richard?
We definitely need more bridges.
You,
Now,
would
the
you,
exact mechanics of that, I don't know. That's something that we're going to have to do more research on.
so
We
would
definitely
you
need more.
prefer a third bridge before redoing the I-5 bridge?
Yes, because obviously we can't just take the I-5 bridge out of commission without something to replace it. So having a third bridge in play would be at least a minimum. So a west one, an east one.
But I mean, they'd leave the I-5 bridge there while they're building it.
Heck, it's an historic landmark. Even if they stopped using it for cars, it should be, a pedestrian bridge or something. It's pretty old and it's pretty interesting. So,
But you think the priority should be a third bridge first before trying to replace an I-5 bridge?
it would have. I don't know the exact mechanics of how the whole thing would work out because it's government after all. It's going to be a sausage machine coming out the end. But here's what I'd like to see: something that at least splits off some of the heavy traffic to bypass the I-5 and then bring it back to I-5 that goes onto the west side. But there's also talk of an East County bridge, and I don't know what the actual numbers are for people who are trying to get over to the east side to the Gresham area. But right now we can see we've got such a bottleneck on I-5. We've got to have a third bridge.
Your view on light rail?
Like I said before, it's neat. It's great for the people that use it. But every time you have a public transportation system, they always run in the red. They never run in the black, and it's often empty. So I don't want a lot of the problems associated with that coming into Clark County.
So if another I-5 bridge were built, you wouldn't even want it light rail?
I personally would not prefer light rail to be the major portion of that bridge, which what the CRC had. It'd be better to focus on cars because that's how people get around. It's more convenient. And if somebody did want to down the road add light rail to it, it should be a private project. Because then we'll know whether or not it's worth doing if a private enterprise wants to get involved with it.
Is there any light rail other than maybe Disney World that has a light rail?
There's a reason for that. Because they don't work. They don't run in the
So
black.
are there any projects the government should do that if private enterprise doesn't want to do them? Is there anything worthwhile?
Well, as it
the
stands right
government
now, they're
does?
running the roads. That's not a bad idea. I'd rather see it privatized, but they're doing a halfway decent idea with roads.
You'd rather see roads be privatized.
There's got to be a
So-
better system.
So the Columbian wants to build a road that direction. They should just be able
Well,
to do
I mean,
Well, you got to coordinate with people. You got to ask for their voluntary consent. You can't just force
How
them.
do you coordinate? Who
Well, how do you coordinate
who
ordering
coordinate?
paper for your newspaper or ink or anything else? You find people who want to provide you the supplies, cut down the trees for the whole process.
You're sort of old school, I'm thinking. It's sort of like the country, its main responsibility is defending our shores, and
That's not a bad idea. I think you should run for office.
Paul, I-5 bridge.
We need to fix the I-5 bridge. So I would look at fixing the I-5 bridge first. We need multiple crossings at some point, but let's fix what we have now. And I would address the entire corridor. I thought your article in the paper recently on the I-5 bridge was pretty good, but as you read into the article farther, you realized that actually there are a lot of wrecks on the I-5 bridge, but there's twice as many wrecks in the Rose Quarter. And if you coordinate those wrecks and you look at when there's a wreck in the Rose Quarter, that there's actually a wreck on the I-5 bridge, that you realize that they're actually sequenced. And so that typically there's a wreck in the Rose Quarter about twice as many as there are on the I-5 bridge. And when there's a wreck in the Rose Quarter, it normally impacts the bridge, and there's another wreck up here. So to me, we really need to address the entire corridor. But we've got to get the I-5 bridge fixed, yeah.
Light rail.
I would actually I would do rapid bus transit, dedicate a lane. You can make it light rail ready at some point, and if the people want light rail, then I would be fine with that. Let the people vote on it. If they want light rail, I'm fine with that. But it to vote to the people.
Well, we will move ahead then. Give us your final pitch, why voters should support you, and please mention any noteworthy endorsements. So, Paul.
So it's been my privilege to be the state representative in the 17th district for 3 terms for 6 years. I believe I represent the district well. I believe I am pragmatic. I believe I'm one of consensus. I think it's important to look at issues, realize where we can make a change, and make that change. I've been fortunate enough to serve on the Education Committee just this last session, realize the importance of education. I believe I can make a difference, and have served on the Environment Committee in my time, serve on the Appropriations Committee, and have been on healthcare for a number of years. I understand the issues. I'll be honest with you, it took me about 2 years to figure it out. It's a steep learning curve. It's a fascinating opportunity where you get to look at a bunch of different issues. But the idea that I can come in with my own agenda and that I can do it my way, I think was the most interesting lesson I learned. There are 48 Republicans now. When I came in, there was 36. We all think a little differently. And then I have 50 Democrats on the other side. To get things done, unless you're just a heck no all the time, you've got to compromise. You've got to find out where you can make small steps. And legislation is small steps. It's not you're not going to have a big change. I think it's part of the issue with education right now. I think it's a rather large change that we need to make. It's rather difficult. It's going to be a tough step, but I think we will get there. So I just appreciate the voters that they have elected me, and I will continue to represent the people of the 17th well if they choose to reelect me again.
And endorsements?
I am endorsed by the Washington Medical Association, the Washington Dental Association. Clyde Holland endorsed me. David Nierenberg endorsed me. I have a variety of different endorsements from very conservative individuals to, I guess, ones that some would say are rather moderate. But I think that's the 17th district. It's not the 18th, and it's not the 49th. It's squished in between.
Great, thank you. For sure.
So I just want to put out on the record here that I am not a pandering politician. So I haven't gone out to these special interest groups looking for an endorsement. I've specifically avoided that. So I don't have any endorsements other than what some individuals may have put on my website. So other than that, let me just say that the system is rigged from Washington, D.C. with James Comey and the FBI all the way to right here at the quid pro quo Brancaccio Bocce Ball party. You know as well as I do that these lying politicians and their media collaborators are interested in one thing, and that's power. Power to line their pockets, power to impose their will on you, power to mold society in a way that disenfranchises us, regular people that just want to be left in peace. We know that they won't stop. We know that they don't know right from wrong. However, unlike them, I know that the only person fit to run your life is you. The only chance we have at securing peace and freedom is to organize an effective and meaningful resistance against their corrupt system. Sending me to Olympia is only one small step of a much larger campaign to put things right. By organizing together for our own mutual aid and our own mutual benefit, by organizing to stand up to these bullies, we will disrupt their system.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
That's almost worth applauding.
I don't know.
I'm impressed. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you.